Hey, will we be able to do some edits?
Not really.
Well, I have to do one takes in that case.
Pretty much.
Today I want to talk about how most people when they get into the studio are not ready, how that might be you, and how we can fix that. I'll also share a story with you of my first real solid studio experience and how being extremely prepared saved my ass and saved us a lot of time and money and grief. If you don't know me, I've been making a living as a freelance audio person, sometimes live, sometimes in the studio, sometimes as a sound man, as a performer, as a singer, as a drummer, as a mixing engineer, as a tech, and many other things. Hopefully, all of that experience can be useful to you. And you may not like everything that I have to say, but hopefully if you like something about this video, you can hit that like button. Thank you, moving on. The difference between being in your rehearsal space or being live and being in the studio is that when you're in the studio and you're recording, you're getting a very zoomed in, detailed, quality HD picture of what it is you sound like. And sometimes it reveals, in fact, most of the times, it reveals the imperfections and the problems that may be in there that you were not aware of. So the purpose of this is to serve as a reality check for some of you and also just a reminder for others. Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro, it's been 20 plus years that you've been playing. Sometimes when you show up and then the red light comes on, you get into a couple of surprises. This is generally how it goes. I get an artist in for a session. They're a little bit nervous, they're excited, they want to do this. We check the instrument, we start plugging it in. I started doing gains, and that's when I gather a lot of information. I am intently listening, actively listening for every bit of information that I can gather. And I do gather a lot. I hear their tone, I hear their timing, I hear their pitch of their fingers, their picks, their hands, their sticks, their voice, whatever it is. This is my job. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how detailed our prior communications were. I try to send artists as much information I can about my process for recording and how they should prepare. And even if I do all of this, they get here and they hit a wall. Now let's briefly talk about the consequences of not being ready. Say you're a pro and you're thinking you're gonna bang a track in 2 hours, and then at the 3-hour mark, you're like, damn, I had something else to do today. Well, you're not in luck unless you want to come back and redo that whole thing or keep going another day, another time. You have to stay and finish the job. So you're wasting your time, you're wasting the producer's time, maybe you're wasting also the client's time if you're not the client. So time is a factor. Then energy. How much energy do you have to spare to do a full day of, let's say, vocal recording or drum recording? I'm picking these two because drums is highly physical and it requires a lot of energy, and vocals as well are very physical. And when you start getting tired, you will hear it. By half of the day, your voice is baked and you have to come back and pay for another session. Take time out of your day. Dishwasher. Okay, he's done now. And you're also wasting money. You may not have an hourly rate, maybe you're paying for the day, but if you're not done by the end of the day, you're gonna have to pay for another day to finish your tracks. You've spent all this creative energy and time into these songs. It would be a waste to realize too late that the limiting factor in the end result is your lack of preparation. Another consequence of not being prepared is that the end result will suffer. There is only so much that post-production can do and editing after tracking can do. It can correct some of the pitch and timing issues. For sure, you can pick the best takes and all that, but it's very difficult to put back some mojo, some vibe, some intention, and some energy that are not into these tracks. Story time. Now, let me give you a great example of how being overly ready is useful and how, even though you think you're ready, you can get into surprises once you show up to the studio. First time I was recording a full-length album with my metal band. The genre was melodic death metal. Here's how it sounded. Complicated stuff. So in 2001, digital audio was still relatively new and some studios were still using tape to record. That's exactly what was the case. We were tracking this album on tape because the producer was using tape, and that's just how it was. I remember clearly being in the drum booth thinking, oh man, so this is a professional studio, we'll be able to do some edits. So I asked the engineer from the drum booth,
Hey, will we be able to do some edits?
Not really.
Will I have to do one takes in that case?
Pretty much.
now looking back, I know what he was trying to say is please don't make me cut some tape. Please don't make me edit. And also probably that the budget that we had was not factoring in a lot of edits. Just to add to that, we had no metronome, no click. So one more reason to do one takes, because if you're not on click and you're trying to pick up wherever you left off on the next take, you better be at the same tempo, otherwise it's gonna be garbage. So that was my first experience, and I was so grateful that the band was rehearsing 3 times a week, and every rehearsal we were playing the full length of the album twice at least. So I was getting in those reps of playing with the band, being solid. I knew my parts, I knew the tempos, I knew my fills. I'm still proud of the quality of that recording. I was still green, I was 21 years old, and I did a decent job. And now things are much easier with digital audio. I don't go through the same gruesome feelings when I'm tracking drums for myself or for clients. But I always try to capture the best performance ever instead of relying on edits. I've noticed that I have several thousands of views on my videos, but I still have under 200 subscribers. So if you think you like that content, there's gonna be more coming. Consider subscribing. Thank you. Digital audio is amazing. Let's just think of a few reasons why it is. Well, it's cheap. You don't need to pay for tape. All you need is a hard drive or an SSD drive to store that audio. It is democratized. Almost every DAW, I think, maybe except Logic, has a free version of their DAW so that you can learn the basics and eventually decide if you want to upgrade. You can record yourself and your band for very little dollars now. And also compared to tape, every time you do a cut and edit, it is non-destructive. You can always get back to the file and start over again. How flexible is that? It's amazing, but it comes at a cost. The fact that your performance can be edited to that does not mean you should show up to the studio unprepared. With all of this said, how should we approach this? How can you prepare yourself for your next studio session? The obvious ones: learn the songs in and out. If you're a singer, know your lyrics, practice the timing, check your pitch. If you're a drummer, learn your fills, hit the center of the skin, do your best to be tight and solid. If you're playing bass or guitars, notice if your strings are ringing when they should not. Pay attention to your note length. If it's got to be short, play it short. If it's got to be long, play it long. It will make a huge difference when you show up. Second obvious thing, get your instrument to a luthier. Bring it to a pro. Change your strings, get it checked just like you would get your car checked. And now a not so obvious one that should become obvious is consult with your producer. If you know who you're going to be working with, who's going to be recording those tracks, ask them way in advance. What should I do to prepare? Your recording engineer or producer that you decide to work with should have a vested interest in making sure that you are prepared for the studio. If you don't know who you're going to be working with, well, still find a pro either in your area or online. This is something that I do with all my clients before we get into the studio. I want to set expectations. Are your instruments in shape? Do you know them well? Can I see you play live? Can I hear you play? Do you have any demos? Do you have any pre-productions? And that leads me to the last thing. One of the best things you can do to prepare for the studio is learn to record yourself. And by recording yourself, I don't mean having a full-fledged multi-track that's just pristine and that you're basically wanting to release by yourself. I mean the basic ability to record yourself, to be able to listen back and analyze your own playing and figure out, is there something off with this? Or at least can I get some feedback so I can improve upon my playing? If you're a drummer, this could mean 2 microphones, a bass drum mic, one overhead. Here's a stereo file of me playing the song with my headphones on. What do you think? A professional should be able to tell the difference between the quality of your recording, the quality of your microphone, given that it is not clipping, anything that can give us clues to help you prepare. And as a reminder, this is not trying to be an elitist and making perfect records. It's about respecting your music, your time, your energy, and your money. Now it's time for you to let me know. Do you remember your first studio experience? Did you have some revelations about your playing? I want to read your stories. Let's share in the comments. I'll be happy to reply as well. Take care. See you on the next one. So much to say.